Welcome to the Jumping Bean Magic Collective podcast. I'm Linda Lewis, founder of the collective, here with my co-host, Heather Manwaring. We started this podcast to dive deep into the creative experience. We explore themes related to the creative path and showcase other creators' journeys. If you want to know more about the collective and our mission of connecting creatives with meaningful work, please check out our website and follow us on Instagram. We'd love to connect with you. We today are going to talk about beginning, and we are still very much beginning this podcast.
Absolutely.
Still getting kinks worked out.
Stumbling our way through the tech.
And getting our environment set up and just jumping in and trying to make our. And this topic came up because we were talking about a lot of different creative topics, but a main one being that we are always beginners as creatives.
Yes.
And sometimes, maybe all the time, that is really uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was actually just painting something the other day because I had this inspiration to paint a hand. And I do not paint figures or hands or anything. I'm more of an abstract artist. I paint with frequency, and this is a frequency, but it is asking me for a hand. And I'm like, shit, I don't know the first thing about painting a hand. And so I paint my background, and, I do the things. And then I'm like, oh my God, this looks terrible. So I just painted over it and started over. Oh my God. So
hands are like the hardest thing to paint.
They're so hard. They're so hard if you don't want it to look janky.
Yeah. Realistic hands, not a thing in painting or drawing. I mean, unless you're really, really, really masterful. But you got to begin somewhere.
Right. So I'm like, okay, maybe I don't start with paint. Maybe I start with drawing and mechanics of a hand. I'm like, oh, really? I'm going back to basics.
That's what we have to do all the time, right? Is like go back to the very beginning. Even having a fine art degree and having taken, I don't know how many drawing classes, 9, 12, something like that in 4.5 years. I can't draw my way out of a paper bag. My 2-year-old wants me to draw her things on her chalkboard, and I'm back to stick figures. Because it's like a language. If you don't speak the language for a long time, you lose it. It's gone.
And if you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah. And you begin again.
And yes, go back to square one.
Yes.
But yes, we can get into that a little bit more later. But I'm like, oh yeah, just this week, actually, I became a beginner again.
Yes. And I think one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this was I think a lot of the time there is an intimidation factor with being a creative, being an artist. People ask me about joining the collective and ask what the entry point is. And I say, consider yourself creative. And even if you don't, we probably have a space for you. If you're interested in having creative discussions, being around designers and artists, and even if you're a hobbyist and somebody who is not ever going to show their work to anyone, we'd love to have you. But people have an intimidation factor. We do have some very, very accomplished designers and artists in our collective, people with 20-year careers and working for major corporations and big names and all of that. And I've heard some of that, like, oh, wow, people have these resumes and I'm intimidated, but they are also beginners all the time. Art and design are practices, and you practice forever, especially in things like architecture and interior design. But I think it's true for all disciplines. Those are just ones I'm most familiar with. That's my background.
No, definitely. I'm like, painting, photography, all of it. All of it is a practice. And there's new stuff coming out all the time. New techniques, new tech, new editing softwares. There's always something new. So, and no matter what, you are a beginner at something all the time as a creative in any capacity.
Yes. Yeah. So how do you deal with the discomfort of the beginning?
And the frustration. Oh my God, there's so much frustration, especially when you have a vision that you can't execute exactly
when I've never
how you see it.
Have you ever executed anything the way you saw it in your head?
A couple times, actually, where I was like, God, I can't believe it happened. Like, it worked. This is exactly what I wanted. Or usually it's better than I had envisioned before, or it like morphed into something surprising, or I had a happy accident. Most of it goes like that, where it's like, I have no idea what I'm doing, and expectations. It didn't turn out at all the way I thought, but it still looks great.
Well, and I don't know if you ever read that book, Art and Fear. It's a really good one
Mm-mm.
for like creative blocks. But they talk about studies. It's not the only place I've read this, but they talk about studies where students were given the assignment to either create the most amount of pottery, let's say. They'd be
Just super
graded by
prolific.
weight. Yeah. Be graded by the
Yeah.
weight of the amount of pottery that they did. And the other
Mm-hmm.
group was going to be graded on the perfect pot. So measured the
Hmm.
dimensions and the wall thickness and all of that. And the group that was most prolific had more perfect pots because
Oh,
they just didn't have that pressure. And that has definitely been my experience with being willing to begin. I'm more willing to begin a podcast because it's so outside the realm of anything I was ever trained to do or expected to
same.
do. I'm willing to just throw a few $100 at the equipment and like see what happens. Make you get up early and
Make me get up at 6 a.m.
get
Yeah.
on here and see what happens. I don't have that tie to the meaning of who I am or what it means about me as a successful creative, whether this ever sees the light of day.
Yeah.
And my
Same.
writing is like that, and yeah, it's my knitting is like that. Some of these other pursuits, but things like that like don't have anything tied to them. Things like drawing, where I paid a shitload of money for an art degree, have a lot of
There's a little
pressure.
more.
There's a lot of weight
Yeah.
and
An
an
expectation and like,
expectation that I be
yeah.
good at it right away. When I pick it back
Yeah.
up, that I can immediately be proficient at it, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
just not.
Yeah.
So I think that's true for a lot of creative pursuits in general, is we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to be good early at things we've never done before.
Yep.
And I even see it in my daughter. It's interesting. We're looking at preschools, and there's a preschool for gifted toddlers, which I was like, every parent thinks their kid's gift. So, like, give me some criteria. And they
Yeah,
did.
like gifted in what?
Right. But actually, like, the things that kind of point to that are not things that you're necessarily thinking, like, oh, my kid's a freaking genius. It is things like being a perfectionist at 2, being highly frustrated by not being good at something right away, which my daughter
She
is,
is. Yeah.
where she will, the train track derails or comes apart and she can't put it back together. And she will go scorched earth and throw the whole train set on the floor.
That's so relatable.
Yeah, right? Like, we all feel that way. I can't even get mad about it. Like, I don't laugh. I don't really react because I'm just like, we all do that. It's
We
fine.
all have that. I can't tell you how many times I've had that scorched earth tantrum and wanted to just throw the whole thing in the trash.
Yes.
Burn it all down. I'm never
Burn
doing
it
this
all.
again.
Yes. But I was always taught to practice when it came to music, but I wasn't really taught to practice when it came to art. Isn't that
Oh,
weird?
interesting. That is weird.
When it came to art, I was always kind of told that you were gifted or you weren't. Like, you had
That's
a
a lot of,
talent or you
that's a
didn't.
crock of shit.
Right? Well, and I think that there was just an idea that if you had a natural talent, you were obviously going to go much further, which is not true either, because people
That's
have
also
natural
true.
talent kind of take it for granted a lot of the time and don't
Or just
maybe do anything
don't
with it.
commit fully.
Yeah. And it took me until really studying. I don't think it actually dawned on me until about 5 or 6 years ago. I was in Europe. I was traveling, and back to back to back, I was in Barcelona, and I saw a David Bowie exhibit, hugely prolific, hugely expressive, was in all kinds of mediums. He did costume design, he did TV, he did movies, he did his own makeup. It was just so prolific from like 17 or something. And then I went to the Picasso Museum, which the one in Barcelona is his early work. So his dad was an art teacher, made him do all the classical drawing, self-portrait, and still life work from like
Wow.
5 or 6 years old. He was
Damn.
painting. He was really young, and he was trained very classically. Most of those paintings, just looking at them, are pretty boring. And it wasn't until he really found his own style, obviously, that he
Right.
became Picasso we know. But
Right.
hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of paintings, and he's got like 4 museums dedicated to him or something in Europe. I've been to at least 3, I think so. He's
Wow.
got enough work out there that he can
Yeah,
fill that many places. And
that's
then
incredible.
seeing Antoni Gaudi's architecture all over Barcelona, another extremely prolific artist, dedicated his entire life, moved into the basement of the Sagrada Familia when it was being built.
Amazing.
And so seeing those, and all of them started as teenagers or younger, and just seeing how much work they put out over their lifetimes. And it wasn't all good, but it was
Hell
so
no.
inspiring to me to be like, but really has nothing to do with talent. It has everything to do with commitment and that driving force to create, and
Mm-hmm.
that like feeling that it's never enough. You can never create enough. And some people have that and some people don't.
Yeah. I mean, I do really like this topic of natural talent because I do consider myself naturally talented in a lot of things. I came out of the womb able to sing, able to, like, my eye was always for beauty. And so there were a lot of things I could do naturally well. I look over at the course of my life and I'm like, okay, I could come out singing, but then I sang all the time. I would sing everywhere. And then I was part of a chorus group for a while and I hated that. But there were things where I continued to nurture that gift. And then I sucked at drawing at first. Of course, when I started drawing, I was obsessed with horses. So I was trying to draw horses and they looked terrible. But I kept drawing, and then my parents were artists, and so they would give me some direction or criticism, and then I would keep going and I would take art classes, and then when I was a teenager, then I started to really develop my own thing and find my own way and really study what I liked, what I was naturally gravitated towards. Photography was like, okay, I already have an eye for composition, whatever, but that doesn't mean I just didn't study or didn't do anything. Like I have tens of thousands of photographs. Not all of
Yeah.
them are good,
Yeah.
but yeah, you can have natural inclination to something and be relatively good at it. If I wouldn't have kept singing or drawing or painting, I wouldn't be where I am right now with the kind of art I can make that looks really amazing, that I genuinely love, and that really I'm playing and I'm executing a vision, but also dancing with the divine, and I don't know always what's going to happen. I really consider myself my own true masterpiece. I work myself and I work myself and I work these spots. I don't just like work one little spot and then I'm done. Like, no. I dig deep. I work my patterns. I like all these different things, which is a huge part of expression and being able to create the kind of art I want to create.
It goes hand in hand with like the execution piece, but also with the commitment piece.
Right. Right. It's like, and I think that's to the point that you were talking about where it's creation is a need. Like, I don't ever feel the part of me that's like, all right, I'm done creating forever on this thing. I'm done painting. No. Like, there are a lot of ways that my creativity wants to express itself, but that driving force is not done. That's the driving force of my life. And it can take many forms, but that's not going to die until I do. You know?
Yeah, I totally see myself as one of those people that's just going to have like a giant art studio by the sea when I'm like 65.
Yes.
And I'm just going to have like 300
Yes.
canvases and a
Yes.
potter's wheel and a kiln. I remember watching, they have like the local PBS station in Oregon, OPB, they used to do. I haven't watched it in years, but they used to do a feature of Oregon artists. They'd show 3 artists in a 30-minute segment or something. And there was a woman who had that kind of life by the sea, but they never showed any actual, what we would consider like actual art of hers. All they showed is like her seashell collections and like all her like found rocks and sticks and driftwood all laid out really beautifully on tables, like long wood tables in this barn or something. And I was like, she's my
My
spirit
God.
animal. That's definitely in my future, is some sort of like witch's
Yes.
cabin with lots of
Yes. Art
dried
supplies and
flowers
yeah, and sticks.
and sticks.
Like a whole bunch of leaves.
Or as my
Just like
husband
strewn
says,
about.
eyes inside outside.
Yeah.
Because
Oh my god.
of course, my daughter is bringing in sticks and rocks and things like I
Of
do.
course.
Yeah.
I do too. I have a whole bunch of rocks that I've collected from like my travels.
But I say that because I think there are so many examples of people starting so late in life, starting after a career, starting after kids, starting after a divorce, starting after some sort of major change in their life or a loss,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
where they
Which is
start to
great.
give
Good on them.
themselves permission, right? Give themselves permission to actually create in the way they never gave themselves permission. Because we are taught that the path of creativity is not lucrative enough. And so you cannot survive in your
Tale
creativity.
is old as time. Yeah.
And I think we're going to do a whole episode on the starving artist trope.
Yes, absolutely. You can't avoid that one. You can't avoid it.
But I think it's also relevant here to beginning, because I think it's the
That's
thing that
true.
keeps people from beginning, is to say, well,
True.
what purpose does this serve?
Right.
And in our capitalistic mentality, what money is it going to bring in? And the answer to that is it may never bring in any money, and the purpose it serves is your creative expression.
Yes.
And because you can't not, it will turn to rot
Yes.
if you
Exactly.
don't.
And that's a perfect segue into what I was going to say is the purpose is it generates energy.
Yes.
It's energy is the currency. It's
Yes.
fulfillment of this thing inside of you. It's the giving you play and experimentation and things that are not tangible that actually do serve your life, whether you see it or not. Yeah, it may not bring you financials, but it will bring you something often much more valuable
And you have more chance of things bringing you financial
when you
income.
continue and commit.
Yeah, when you continue and commit, and when you are true to that creative thing that wants to come through.
Right.
Because I think a lot of
Yes.
people
I love that.
go, well, too many other people are doing something similar, or I don't have anything unique to say here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they don't let it unfold. I'm very guilty of this. Like, they don't let it unfold to be what it's supposed to be. They don't let it mature,
Right.
because they just cut it off at the knees and say, well, it hasn't made me any money, or it hasn't brought
Like gone
me
anywhere.
recognition.
Right. Or it's still not good or whatever the case may be. And yeah. Yeah, I like that piece about letting the creativity or the creative expression mature. Because I think that is such a huge, huge thing that,
For me, maturity has been letting the mediums be what they are instead of my preferences.
right, right,
So I think we
totally.
talked about this last time. Like, my preference would be to be a visual artist. That is not actually how my expression is taking shape.
Yeah. When I first started painting, it was all of the pain that existed, the angst, the things I needed to process on the inside. And it was at times very chaotic, at times very dark, but then there'd be some beautiful things too. I'd make beauty out of the darkness and all that stuff. But there was a point after I started working with Perry that like it started to take a different form where the source of my creative expression changed from one of internal pain and strife into what's the thing I'm going towards, what's the thing that pulls me forward out of the pit. And then for me that was all the different types of frequencies and energies that are available, like love and joy and abundance and creation. And it became much more this relationship with the divine in a way that made my art different. Clearly, it was still my style, my natural inclinations for texture and natural elements and all these different things and lots of color, layers, but it took a whole different form. And so it was less and less about me and more about how do I bring more of this into my world and in and through me to be expressed. And that's where I did have to get out of the way, which was not my preference. I just want to keep painting my own pain and my own stuff and whatever. But then it became, all right, this is a different expression of this. And, you know, luckily I actually liked my art more, but it became this I don't actually have a vision anymore. It's not, I don't have an idea of the piece I want to make. It was like, oh, I feel this energy coming through and it wants to be expressed this way. And basically getting out of the way to let this energy use my hands and guide my strokes and create with me. And so that took a process of maturation where there's something beyond myself, there's something beyond my own experience of life, and trusting something bigger. And I will say, I look at the difference between my early art and now, it looks an adult created that. You can tell the difference, and you can really see the evolution.
We talked a little bit about this before recording, but the idea to maturing, it is both a kind of a spiritual maturity, but also maybe just an age thing too, where you start to care less and less what other people think. So you are less externally motivated to create the things you're creating. We'll talk about
Right.
recognition.
Yes.
Like, I think we're gonna have a whole episode on recognition too. And recognition never hurts, but you can get addicted to it.
Yeah.
So
Totally. And like
when you
require it.
yeah, and when you know that something is just fully internally resourced, whether that's internally with energetics or not, it's just something, a story you need to tell, or something about your process, or lots of examples, especially in writing, is what I'm mostly thinking of when I'm talking about this.
Totally.
You stop caring so much what other people's opinions are of that thing, and
Yeah.
you do it because you need to do it, not because there's going
You
to be
need
any gain
the
from
hit of
it.
validation. Yeah. Yeah. There were so many years where I really wanted my family's approval of my art. I really wanted, my stepmom was like a famous artist. And so I would always go to her and be like, look at my piece. Like, it's so amazing, right? And then she would like critique the shit out of it, which is good on some level where she helped me improve for sure. But the reason I went to her was for that approval. And so there was a huge shift in my artwork when I stopped going for that. Like, I stopped showing her because I wanted her to tell me I did an amazing job, and instead was like, here's something that lives inside of me. Experience it. And like, I didn't actually care if she liked it or not. Like, I stopped asking her for critiques because I know this is what my internal orientation wanted to create. And so I stopped needing that. And ironically, that's when she was like, wow, amazing. When I really stopped needing and stopped caring what other people were going to think, it also shifted how I created and like how I related to it afterwards and all that kind of stuff, and stop being so afraid of showing people what I've created.
Yeah, that fear holds people back, like probably like no other. Is
Like no other.
the fear of being rejected, the fear of being canceled, the fear of being somebody
Judged.
saying, "Oh my God, that's really who you are on the inside. I now want nothing to do with you."
Right.
Through the path of creating and being willing to begin and make mistakes and fail, you do lose people
Totally.
in that process, because people have all kinds of feelings about you putting yourself out there that way,
Yeah.
and don't always like to watch it because it makes them uncomfortable with their lack of expression.
Lack of expression or even their own mess. Creativity is so messy a lot of the time, especially when you're in it and unraveling shit and expressing things imperfectly,
Or just
and
sarcastic.
or starting a podcast and it's not perfect, you know? We're just showing up. It really can trigger like people's perfectionism or their own fear of starting or of looking like an idiot or whatever the case may be. It sometimes is very confronting, even when it's unintentionally so. Like, I'm not going out trying to trigger people. Like, I want to live in integrity with myself. Not everyone likes honesty. You know what I'm discovering? It is so wild to me. I was in the dark for so long. I really loved this dark feminine idea of myself, like the rabid wolf type, scrappy and
Did you wear a lot of
angry.
black? Did you
Oh,
wear a
I
lot of
wore
black
tons of
eyeliner?
black. Tons of black, dude. So much black. And I am really discovering how the truth of I am such a light, joyful, happy
Damn it.
being. I'm like, fuck, what? What is this? I am the sun? What the fuck? I thought I was a cave. Dark cave. And it's so funny because, like, the dark really, really is confronting. to people. And so I really grew accustomed to making people uncomfortable with the intensity of
Yes.
my emotional expression. But I am also now realizing, as I am radiating and just feeling really healed and good about myself, that is also confronting.
Yeah, it is.
People are so confronted by that. And I'm like, what? I'm literally the most available, beautiful, happy person.
I know.
You are still fucked up. So it's like, I'm not even trying to trigger you anymore. I don't get off on that anymore, but it still happens. And it's, wow. Huh.
Well,
My
and you and I can
existence.
see people, right? And people don't really want to be
That's true.
seen.
That's
Very
true.
confronting to be seen. So,
It's true. It's true.
yeah, that's a big part of it.
No, obviously I wouldn't trade it for anything. Like it doesn't hit me the same, but it's still sometimes shocking to me.
Yes. I mean, same. I have found it's confronting for people to witness my happy home with my husband and daughter.
Yeah.
And that's been odd at times.
Yeah, I bet. You're like, you're mad that I'm happy?
Yeah, but there is some of that because when, especially if you've considered yourselves to be in the same place at previous points in your life, and then somebody is not in the same place anymore because of how much work they've done and how much change and transformation has happened, and then it feels like they're not on the same planet, and there's
For sure.
jealousy and all kinds of stuff that comes up. I've always been the type of person to be like, but how do you do it? Like,
Right.
even if I feel those feelings of jealousy, then I'm like, but hang on, let me know what's behind the
But I
scenes
also
here.
want that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so show me your
Show
ways.
me. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to let jealousy take it over. I want to
Mm-hmm.
understand. And not everybody's built like that, is what I've learned. But
Right.
I guess my
Right.
question to you is if somebody is feeling, I mean, this goes to the freeze response. If you are unable to begin, you're in a freeze response.
Mm-hmm.
And so my question to you is when you're working with people and you have somebody who's in that place, how do you work with them to help people really get started?
Ooh. Well, I mean, the first thing I would have them do is really be with their bodies. Be with the freeze and what does it feel like? What sensations does it have? And really guiding them down into themselves and not making it wrong. Really, really giving it love and approval because it is protecting you. It's essentially it is loving you, and definitely not in the way that your mind might prefer, but it is trying to love and protect you.
Mm-hmm.
So really approaching it with curiosity and understanding. So give it a little more space and approval, and then just letting it thaw from the inside out is how I work with myself there and with other people. And I think this is something that I definitely have picked up from Perry is you really can't create fully with not all parts on board. The parts of you that if you're trying to force a part of you out or cut it out or tell it to go away or you can't be here, the louder it gets and the more it will grow to sabotage everything. So that really felt true to me is you really do need all of the parts of you in alignment with whatever wants to come through. So yeah, that would be my approach is like feel your body, learn what this part needs too. They're usually these parts like really need something from you, whether it's love and attention or to be seen or just space to express itself as is, not how you wish it would express, but how it is actually expressing.
Yeah.
And I think that is also how I approach art. It's not what I wish I could create. It's what wants to come through me, whether I like it or not, whether it's ugly or not, whether it evokes tears, the quintessential ugly cry. Are you willing to let yourself get ugly to find the beauty? And that's really the way I approach life. Um, but yeah, sometimes the shit's ugly, and you find a truth in there that you don't like or that you think would lose people, and sometimes it does. But that's the path to creative freedom. If I don't ever admit to myself something ugly lives inside of me, then I'm always going to actually be at the beck and call of that ugly
Mm-hmm.
and never actually fully realize the beauty.
Yeah, the body piece is big for
Yeah.
sure. feeling the freeze sensation, feeling however it's manifesting.
Yeah.
The paralysis is what it really is when you just,
The terror.
yeah.
The
Because, and I think a lot of the terror comes from inability to hold other people's reactions. So I think I try to give people a lot of permission to keep things hidden as long as they need to. Like,
yeah.
to not share, even that you're doing it, even that you're keep it for yourself and to
It's for
yourself.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Until you know that you can handle whatever the array of reactions is. And this goes beyond creativity. This goes for kind of
Way beyond.
anything.
This is relationship
Yeah.
101.
Yeah, for sure. And then the other piece is just getting to the why of that paralysis. What is it bringing up in terms of childhood experiences are always there when it comes to creativity. Our creativity
Yeah, of
gets
course.
squashed so early in so many
Early.
very subtle ways.
Yeah. And some not so subtle.
And some not so subtle. Being told you don't have natural talent for something, or that somebody else does, or whatever. Or even that you
Or
do, and then that's the thing that you should pursue. And then any other way you express yourself, you're told like you shouldn't be a beginner when you're so good at this other thing. I think a lot of people get shoved back where they belong.
Well,
Make somebody more comfortable that like, oh well, you're such a good singer, why don't you just sing? Why are you over here painting?
right.
That's a waste of your time. Right.
Or even like other people's ideas of you. Oh, well, you're this. Why now you're deviating? That's now you don't fit into my box.
Yeah. So it's like what are the who are the voices, because it could be a part of you and it also can be a voice that's outside of you.
True.
That is in your brain
that you've internalized. Yeah.
That's saying you don't get to do that. That's not who you are. That's, you're a fill in the blank. Whatever your supposed title is, and you're not going to be good at this. So you shouldn't even begin.
Right. Totally. That's a good point. Yeah. Like whose voice is this? Where did you pick this up?
Yeah.
Who told you this?
And most of these things are writing exercises. Sometimes I forget to say that to people because I am such a writer and that's how I process. A lot of people don't write and they don't know how to write, and you don't have to. And this is another beginning thing, is journaling is for everyone and it's only for you to see. And you could write in the most fragmented, demented.
Totally. No one's gonna give a shit.
And it would still be useful to you. Write notes on what your thoughts are, especially around things like this. Why can't I begin? And getting that out in that exercise. And then I think the other thing that I have worked with people on is just beginning in the very, very smallest step. And recently I've been real low energy, and there was a day that I was going to take my daughter to the lake nearby, which is 30 minutes away. But with a toddler, the amount of preparation that goes into a lake day is pretty extreme. It's kind of an Olympic sport. And so I just kept asking myself.
30 minutes turns into an hour and a half.
Easily.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to tell her we're going because, as soon as she hears we're going, then like she'd be fixated. And if I have to bail, I don't want her disappointed about it. So I just did one step at a time. I would just ask myself, like, can I put the wagon in the car? Okay, I got the wagon in the car. Can I make us some sandwiches? And like put those in a cooler. And, that was exactly how the process went until we ended up at the lake. And then you're there and you have to do all the things to come home, which...
Right. You have no choice.
I definitely wanted to bail at that point, but no one was coming to save me.
Yes, totally.
But I think that process of can I, and this is where I would always do an art project, can I go buy the supplies? The answer is always yes.
Absolutely. More supplies.
More supplies. Yes. So that's something I have to back off of. But can I do it with the supplies I have is the better question for me.
There we go.
Personally.
There we go. That would be more my style as well.
Yeah. Can I
can I actually make it work? Yeah.
Yes.
How creative do I have to get with my current supplies.
That is a new question for me. I have always been a
Yes.
supply junkie, as you witnessed when I moved and had to get rid of
Yes. I
lots and
actually
lots of
have.
supplies.
Yes. And the bag full of supplies that you gave me.
Yes. Yes. So that would be another more on the practical side of things.
Well, you're
Just
good at the
doing
practical stuff.
it's just yeah, just doing one little piece. Don't tell anybody about it.
Yeah.
Don't announce it on social media that you're starting a new hobby.
Right. 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 Just fucking start
What's the
behind the
minimal
scenes.
entry? Yeah, the minimal entry.
Yeah. Can I put the paint out
Yes.
just next to the canvas? Can I put the canvas on the easel and just see what it feels like to have the canvas out? And that's it, maybe for the day.
Yes.
And you come back and you're like, maybe I'll put a stroke on there and see how that feels. Yeah, so I like that. I'm definitely more of the once we get to the canvas part. But yeah, I mean, I see that a lot in the emotional stuff too. I've never expressed anger before. How do I express anger? All right. Well, you first got to start with the part of you that doesn't want to feel the anger. Can you be with that? And then can you let out a little huff? There are layers to this stuff where it was a process to even let myself feel the anger fully. But then there's an artful expression of emotion too. So there are so many aspects of creativity and of life that that are new all the time.
All the time. And if you're resistant to the new, which
Oh,
I was
hell
for
yeah.
years. I mean, trauma can do
Hell
that.
yeah.
There's a lot of reasons
Yep.
to be resistant to change, resistant to new. And then
Mhm.
I would override my system and force myself into new
Yes.
and create a lot of
Yes.
forced stress instead of
Yeah.
letting things evolve.
Like overwhelm. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Still do that for sure.
Burnout.
Overcommit.
Overcommit.
I actually declined a project, this very sweet creative project that I'll tell you more about sometime. But I actually declined it this week. I am overcommitted
Wow.
and I was proud of myself for doing it.
Nice. Good for you.
I just want to I want to invite people that are listening to tell us what they're beginning or what they want to begin.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's
What it feels
something
like, what your process is.
yeah, or what's stopping you or what is.
Yeah.
And I
What's
think
happening over
we'll
there?
have Q&As on here, either rapid fire or we'll bring guests on and coach them through some of these things. So let's invite people to engage with us on that.
I love that. Yes.
So that is beginning. I'm sure there's more to talk about, but
There's always is.
I think this is a really good beginning to our podcast, second episode.
Agreed.
And
Agreed.
yeah, I'm curious what people will have to say too about their process with beginning. I always feel like a brand new bee. I think that's a big part of parenting too. Is you're in a new stage all the time, and it doesn't matter how much you know about
And your kid is
kids.
changing all the time.
Your kid is changing all the time, and you don't know your kid in this phase, and yeah, it's just constant newness, constant beginning.
Love that.
And I don't think any parent feels like they're ever a veteran. I don't think anybody ever feels like that I've ever spoken to.
Unless they have a big ego.
There's that.
Another topic for another day.
topic. Okay, so you can go to jumpingbeemagiccollective.com. You can fill out an application to be a member where we learn a little bit more about you and the way you want to engage with the collective, because there's various ways, various levels of engagement. And member benefits. So we have an online community on WhatsApp. We also typically have a monthly call that might morph more into this podcast, but we're playing with the format of that. And on those monthly calls, there's an opportunity to be a highlighted member. So we record your creative journey, much like Heather and I talked about ours, but with visuals. And then that gets cut up and put on our Instagram and other socials. And then we also put your profile on our website and links to your websites. So it's definitely a way to grow your reach, especially if you're, small artist, small business, freelancer. And we're still small, we're still growing, but eventually I really want members to be helping each other on each other's projects. So if you have a venture that you're trying to get off the ground and you need graphic design support, you need web development or design support, you need social media management design support, Canva work, photography tutorials, we have people for all of those things. You have a retail business that you want to get off the ground and you need design support for that. We can put you in touch with creatives for almost any type of venture or project that needs creative touches. And I would say that especially in this day and age with the way marketing is now, everyone needs some sort of creative hand to get anything off the ground. We have lots of people who really want to do some children's books. So I want to create a children's book focus group within Jumping Bean. I know someone who is working on publishing children's books and does crowdfunding for children's books. So I want to bring her on at some point. So there's just lots of opportunities as a member to see and be seen, interact with other artists and designers. We tend to be a solo bunch on the whole. We like to go into our caves, and so it's nice to have a little bit of a community to bounce things off of, to bring your projects in that maybe you don't want to put on social media and you just want to be seen in your process. And if you want critique or feedback, maybe before even a client sees it, or something new discipline that you haven't done before and you want somebody else to see it before it goes out into the world, like, we're your people. So that's a little bit about what we do in Jumping Bean and why you'd want to be a member. It's $20 a month right now. That will probably change in the future to more of a tiered membership level. So if you're not taking work through the collective, it'll be less. And if you are, then it'll be more, is how I'm thinking of it right now. But right now it's just a flat rate as we get started. And taking work through the collective, I'm going to work on getting more and more companies where I'm referring people out for jobs, and then also individual clients. And we'll talk more about like what those consultations look like in a future episode. But there's information on the website if you're interested.
Perfect. Love it.
That's the pitch for today.
Dun, 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 dun.
Well, thank you everyone for being with us. Thank you, Heather, for getting up early.
My pleasure. This was so fun. I loved it.
So fun.
It's worth it.
All right.
For sure.
Until next time.
All right. Bye-bye.
Signing off. Thank you for listening. If you are looking for more information about the Jumping Bean Magic Collective, please visit us at our website, www.jumpingbeanmagiccollective.com. There, you can become a member, reach out with questions, or become a design client. You may also find us on Instagram and Threads. If you enjoyed listening, please rate the show. See you next time.